I wanna dance by water beneath the Mexican sky, drink some margaritas by swinging blue lights, listen to the mariachi play at midnight. Are you with me? Are you with me?
All right, folks, we're back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast. Will, are you with me?
I am here.
It's been a while. Do we remember how to do this?
Barely was able to log into the Google Doc, so pretty good sign.
It's funny, like typically, over the years doing this podcast, after basketball season, after the tournament, things kind of slow down, and my desire to record podcasts kind of wanes with it until, midsummer, and I'm amped for football again. But this year, it's been a lot going on, surprisingly. And, you and I have texted back and forth. I'm like, yeah, we should probably put that on audio at some point. But we're back. It's been a little while. I can't promise you we'll do it again next week, but we'll do it again soon after this. It's a bit of relief and a bit of therapy from the world burning around us. So
yeah,
I'm happy to record.
I feel like it's funny. I other than like kind of perusing the boards occasionally to kill time during the day, I've been so busy with work, and I have not been tuned into sports at all. I don't listen to watch ESPN or listen to sports radio or anything like that. So aside from like the podcast coming from the paid content websites, it's been like a little retirement, a little vacation.
Yeah. I was amazed. I basically turned off all of social media just for obvious reasons over the last few months. And I've been amazed how much free time it brings up. I'm like, I reach for my phone, I could pop open Twitter. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. What should I do? I have all this free time now. So yeah, that's where I am. That's where I am with things.
Well, I've been restoring some power tools that I inherited from my neighbor that needed some love and care. So the 70s and 80s of power tools I've been having some fun with. But yeah, I know how it is. I'm a news junkie, so I've still been engaged. But it's just it's funny. I feels like it was just yesterday that I was flying back from Alabama right before this all really took off.
Good, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think that was when because we were down there, and that's when UNC got its doors blown off and ruined college basketball. It was so bad they just canceled it.
Can't have a tournament without the Heels,
no.
So they canceled it.
They said no.
Yeah, I'm going to stand by that one.
Yeah, no blue bloods, get out of here.
Right. Oh man. Well, in the state world, we've had a lot going on. I don't even know where to begin. We've obviously football related. We've got a bunch of recruits. That's good. The last podcast we recorded was the Will Shipley. I don't know what you want to call it, letdown episode. But they seem to recover, right? There was a lot of all the questions we got were around. Why is recruiting going so poorly? And basically it was like, it's still early, right? It's May. It's like, calm down, people. And most of that, we talked about it because the Heels jumped out to got a bunch of commitments, et cetera. And state fans didn't have anything else to do. So we started focusing on this. And, it was still early and it proved right? They landed a top quarterback on their board, Aaron McLaughlin. I think that's, that one alone probably deserves some conversation. He's legit. And he's the kind of guy that other recruits want to play with. And I don't think we've talked about it yet, his commitment. But I think it was, outside of Shipley, the most important player in this class.
Yeah,
am I wrong?
He's so legit they knocked a star off of him.
Stupid. Stupid.
I've been watching his film and I'm just trying to figure it out. I don't know what else you want to really see from a high school quarterback. I think Chad Simmons on over on Rivals was like, well, we saw him a few months back. I wanted to see him working on some stuff and doesn't seem like he had. And I was just like, well, it's been quarantine time, but like he's a big mobile quarterback, and I've seen people with less tools win plenty of games in college, and I think he's like the exact prototype I've always asked for, which is, I want someone that's big and mobile and has a big arm to take advantage of jump ball, deep ball shots. So
right.
I think it's good to balance him out with like the other guys that are already in the quarterback room that should be, I would think, after this year, a little bit more accurate, a little bit more of your traditional passers. But it seems like I know a few of the commits weren't related just to him committing, but it seems pretty clear that he's the kind of guy and Crowell and a couple others that once you see them commit, you say, okay, hey, that actually does look like a safe landing spot.
Yeah, with McLaughlin and the whole dropping his star thing, the chart came out and it went around Twitter about the biggest sites and the most moneymakers for 24/7. And Carolina's at the top of the list, right? They draw a lot of money. And so, of course, all the coverage is going to steer around those schools that are the biggest money generators for them, right? They're going to get the most clicks. They're going to get the most interest. So they're never going to give our guys a fair look, right? We see it happen all the time. Our guys commit and then their rankings go down. It's just how it is, right? They want to bump us. It's not necessarily they're pushing our guys down, but they're pushing the other guys up. They're trying to make these other schools look good. And if you want to look at what recruiting's doing now, State's fourth in the ACC in average star rating, right? They've landed McLaughlin, and then they got Crowell after that, right? He's another highly rated guy. And, it's hard for these sites to look at things objectively because they have, their bottom lines to look after.
Yeah. I mean, look, you can I don't know if anyone happened to have ever been an Inside Carolina member, but you can go, if you ever were before the 24/7 shift, the amount of complaining that website's moderators and owners did to scout about NC State's rankings and being upset when a North Carolina prospect dropped down in the rankings. For the longest time, I was like, I just can't believe that these guys think they have the kind of clout to be complaining at the level that they did. But when I saw that image go around, I was just like, well, of course. But yeah, I'd be curious to see if most of their subscribers are basketball oriented versus the football.
They got to be, right? They got to be.
It doesn't make sense that there's that many subscribers, to be honest.
Well, they've got to be basketball oriented, but they look at the, where's Carolina ranked in recruiting and all that stuff. Just when the hype is around, just things that they can throw around. Doesn't actually matter if they're any good, but this is what we're doing.
Wow.
To wave it in your face.
I gotta say, they certainly got a lot of hype currently. I'm gonna be really curious. All the coaches are saying it. It's gonna be a huge season of decommits. I'll be really interested to see. We flipped Nate Evans out of nowhere on Tennessee. I'd be really curious to see how long that holds up. Jordan Poole is making a decision soon. He strikes me as a guy that could be a classic case of picking someone other than NC State and then coming back around to NC State by the end of the cycle. It's going to be fascinating, I think, just seeing how this spills out as the year progresses, assuming that there's football.
Yeah, the Nate Evans one was weird. Nobody saw that coming. But what's his name? God, I forgot. Coach. DeForest, right?
Mitchell, I think, is who it was. Brian Mitchell.
Okay, Mitchell. Brian Mitchell was on him, this Nate Evans kid from Virginia, when he was at Virginia Tech, and apparently he built up a really good relationship with him, and just one of those things. But yeah, Tennessee is going to be the perfect example of schools where, they took everybody early, both, a lot of these guys, they don't get to camp. They don't get to have their senior years, those sorts of things. And, they're taking these guys just to hold their spot because they're probably freaking out. If I'm a kid and I don't know what to expect, I'm probably going to jump on an offer, even if I'm not solid, right? We saw that same thing happen with the running back McDowell from Georgia. Kid never came to campus, right? He's never visited.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
You can't expect these kids to stick, right? So that's.
I'm always wondering. I'll always be curious if we ever get some information on that. Like, did they just take that commitment because they were like, sure, but they expected him to back out or not? But I mean, Tennessee's ploy is they just push everyone really hard, and they jacked up their class like that. I'm sure the run that what do we call them? The bagmen are running back and forth right now. Those classic SEC bagmen. So we'll see how it rolls out. I guess what I was getting at is, don't be surprised if NC State loses some people. You should be shocked if UNC doesn't lose people. I think that's going to be a common story across the industry, probably August, September, October timeframe, assuming we get some normalcy at that point, football wise.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird year, but I think for the most part, it's been a while.
Right from the heart, man.
For the most part, recruiting seems to have picked up some momentum.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. I don't know. There seems to be some gaps here, right? It's not all peaches and cream and ice cream. I don't know what the saying is, but it's, sorry, I've been drinking a little bit too much already.
Peaches and cream.
It's just the old 112 song, right?
Yeah. Oh boy, we're derailing.
Anyway, recruiting. Yeah. Sorry,
it's a hard podcast
recruiting,
when I'm the sober one. I get it.
It's going to be. It's just going to be interesting, man. I think they're doing a lot good, but there's still some areas that will probably could use some attention, right? I think running back recruiting's a bit of a concern. We can get into that a little bit, but I think there's some things to talk about there to explore. I'm not going to be a complete homer and say, hey, it's great, everything's fine. It's getting better, and it's this is what we expected. But I will say, like, overall, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Currently, given a new staff, no spring ball, essentially, no real relationship building with these kids, and they're landing the guys that they want to land that are in the area, right? And those are going to be the guys that are going to be more likely to stick. The ones you can have a relationship with and, that are close by and, those sorts of things. I really think location is going to be a big factor in a lot of recruits' minds as we get out of the back end of this pandemic. I think there's going to be some things where people are just like, yeah, I'd probably rather stay semi-close to home.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you think they want to stay close to home, or do you think because they've been cooped up that they want to get far away? I
don't think they want to get far away. I think you'll have parents encouraging kids to stay closer.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially if there's things like, they're not gonna have classes after Thanksgiving and those sorts of things, right? It's gonna have an impact. So It'll be interesting.
That's a good point. Yeah, I always forget about those little tweaks. It will be interesting too, just to see. We're seeing it with as schools are releasing information about cases and tests and whatnot. I'm curious to see if we see just like a kind of like a rash of test results here at the beginning, and then by the season, does it kind of calm down? I don't know. I feel like NC State's done such a good job so far, just with how they've handled Zoom and just communications in general, and they seem to have a good plan. I'm really hoping that we don't have to deal with, we're one of the schools because we didn't get that, cohesion with the staff really beforehand and get a bunch of spring ball. That I think the one thing that could really hurt us at this point is if there's just like a never ending 4 or 5 guys getting COVID on the team during the next month and a half.
One of the things on our notes was Clemson broke out with COVID, and they had 30% of their players, or 30% of the players tested had it, or athletes, I guess. It was some of the other sports as well. And the general consensus is Clemson was doing it the right way, just like get everybody sick, right? Have somebody who's sick and get them in the room and sneeze on everybody, or get it out of the way, and so you're ready to go in the fall. The other side of it is what State's doing and being more cautious. Maybe they'll be the last one standing.
Well, that's I kept kind of thinking, I was like, there's two ways to go about this, right? You either get it now and hope that you're the only ones that are available to play, or I still don't even understand how they would do this during the season. Like, what do you do when someone coughs on somebody in the game? Like, you either just have to basically say, like, we really care about you athletes, but we don't, because we need you to play football.
We need your TV money.
Yeah. But, the thing I guess what I'm really interested in is, are all these tests, are they asymptomatic? Are these guys actually sick, right? Because they're, the flu is really detrimental to your heart, actually. And I'm super curious to see, long term, what does this do for respiratory systems and things like that for athletes in particular? Do you see guys recover from coronavirus, and then, you actually see their athletic ability diminish somewhat as a game progresses? It's unknown territory, I guess.
Yeah, I think these guys are elite athletes, so I would imagine the impact is going to be minimal if you compare them to Joe Schmo.
I don't know. Maybe they turn into Joe Schmo afterward,
That's true. I can hope so for Clemson's sake.
Oh, my God. That was, I shouldn't wish that upon anybody, but I was also like, I hope Travis Etienne, can't breathe through the fourth quarter, please.
So a buddy texted me and was like, if we don't play this year, that means Trevor Lawrence goes pro next year. We don't have to face him again.
Oh, hell yeah. Like, you won't see me crying.
Right?
I know no one wants to hear that. Yeah, no one wants to hear it. But long term, probably the best thing is for State to not play football and let us get healed up and guys graduate. That would be great for the division.
Can you imagine the trash talk that's going to happen? As like, you're a defensive end, like, I got the COVID, man. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. I'm going to lick you. I'm just going to be some really foul stuff being said.
Don't you remember how dirty Clemson was in games? Like doing stuff at games, grabbing people, doing all kinds of weird things. I am positive everyone is going to be coughing on the ball. There's going to be like 1,000 COVID cases after week 2. Like, it's happening.
Yeah.
Thank God we get that 2-day advantage down there in Louisville, though.
Yeah, so State Louisville got bumped for a horse race. Now, granted, it is the biggest horse race in the world, but the Kentucky Derby, they don't want to have any impact, whatever, with the crowds and all that jazz. So State in Louisville is going to play on a Wednesday. So I guess that's week 0.5, or I don't know what you're going to call it. But
yeah, I guess are we the first game, or?
I'm sure there's a game before that. There's always well, I guess not. They might not, because it used to be the was it the Southern Classic?
There was a kickoff class or something.
Yeah, the Southern Classic or whatever is the one that's always the HBCU game in Memphis. I forgot who's the two schools that play, Jackson State and Southern or something like that. And they canceled it this year.
Oh, don't.
So we might be the first ones.
No. The first game is going to be Marshall versus East Carolina and California versus UNLV, according to this.
Okay.
We are 1, 2, 3, 4. We are the 7th game of the season.
Perfect.
But we are the
kind of how I like it.
Yeah. We're the first actual football programs. Sorry, ECU. Didn't really mean to do a shots fired there. But UCLA and California don't count either. So.
Agreed.
God. Well, if we look really bad, we can be like, well, we missed 2 days of practice because of this.
Yeah, right. We missed all of spring. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing that I have in my notes here is the ACC puts out their top 30 players coming back this year, and not a single one from the Wolfpack. Like, I really believe they sometimes forget we are in the league.
I would forget about us after last year, though. I mean, other than Zonovan,
I would want to, but
I mean, who would you put? I would put Zonovan Knight.
Alim McNeil's the best defensive tackle in the
But
league.
like that's the thing is like that's the kind of position that they always defer to whoever the primetime teams are, right? If it involves line play, it's like you can tell most of the media is like never actually, coached or analyzed or played the sport. I think did we lose?
No, I'm here. We're talking, so I'm raising my desk, so I put it on mute for a second.
Oh man, look at that! What do you got there? You got an uplift? You got a V2? What is that?
I have a Jarvis. I've had the standing desk for a while.
Yeah. I just ordered
Jarvis got bought out by some other standing desk company. It's fun. Yeah. It's bamboo. It's big. Goes up and down.
Well, I ordered the frame and motor for mine, but I'm going to build the tabletop. So, what were we even talking about? I thought for a minute we
top 30
Lots connection. Oh yeah. So, I mean, actually, you know who I would say it would be if it was my top 30 who I'm interested in from an NC State perspective. It'd be like Ike Ekwonu and Knight,
right?
And yeah, I guess McNeil. I think the thing is like I need to go back and look at McNeil's stats. It's weird. Last year was so bad. Like it's just really hard to even focus on anyone's output, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's see. Put in Aleem McNeil. I know everyone keeps bringing up Aleem, so I mean, I must have just like clawed my eyes out by the second quarter of every game and stopped looking.
I mean, he was dominant, and everybody. I mean, he graded out the highest of any defensive tackle outside of the Clemson kid, whose name I forgot.
Yeah, and he was Iron Ball mentioned all ACC by Pro Football Focus, so he must have.
Yeah, and wasn't Icky all a freshman All-American?
Yeah, Icky. I mean, Icky really was.
Come on now.
You could see it with Icky. So like that's kind of why I'm like, now I get this too. I mean, 30. Now were they doing it by like they were trying to fill out an offense and a defense? You know what I mean? Just picking one.
Yeah. Okay. Probably.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's like 14 UNC players on there because they're the greatest 7-win team I've ever heard of.
Other thing that happened, interesting thing, well, depending on your side of the fence, but Jeffrey Gunter decided to transfer out of the program. Now, the transfer itself is not a big deal, but he transferred in from Coastal Carolina, sat out. Everybody really had a lot of positive things to say about him. And then his transfer out was kind of a weird situation. He like randomly says, he randomly put this thing on Twitter and said he was leaving. And I commented on it and I just said, I retweeted it and said, hey, this is a strange one. And he didn't like that so much. So he reached out to me. He responded to it and said, you got a problem with that? Or he DM'd me or something. I forgot how the conversation started, but we ended up in the DMs talking. And I was like, dude, I wish you well. I was like, I just think it's strange. I don't know your situation. And, the rumor was that he didn't like the transition to the 3-3-5. And everybody knew if you're, you have a pulse, you knew that was that was BS or something else.
Well, he said it was BS too, didn't he?
Well, yeah. So then he goes on and tells me he's a big State fan. He's like, I've always been a State fan. I always will be a State fan. He's like, but there's, he told me there's something morally wrong in that building is what he told me. And basically he got into it with a coach. A new coach, his position coach is gone. I don't necessarily know. I didn't press him for details. I asked him, do you want to, expand on it some more? And he didn't. Yeah. But basically got into it with a coach. We knew it wasn't the 3-3-5. And I don't know. It's strange. He went back to Coastal Carolina.
Well,
I wish him well. But
so that my understanding was because mostly any place he was going to go, he wasn't going to be able to get a waiver. And so by going back to Coastal, he was able to play right away. And I'm guessing it was familiar. And I thought kind of throughout the whole thing, he always wanted to be relatively close to North Carolina, so it kind of makes sense from that standpoint. I don't know if it's ever happened before, but I think the thing that just sucked as far as I was concerned is like there were a lot of really, really good reports about him as far as like what he is doing on the practice fields. And I don't think State's in any position to lose people. I think the defensive line is pretty thin. I think if you ask the defensive coordinator, he would tell you that. And not as thin as safety, but apparently safety is an issue too. So, there were just a couple transfers that I think that hurt more than anything. And I know the answer will be, well, you're backfilling and, there's people to step up, but I don't think there was anyone of like Gunter's caliber that was sitting there as a primed contributor that left.
Right. So that was weird. I guess it's natural to happen when you have that big of a shift in the coaching staff. And, I don't know what everybody's story is, right? The old saying is there's three sides to every story: his, theirs, and the truth. I imagine that's probably applicable here. So interesting, nonetheless. Interesting that he's really defensive on Twitter.
Well, I will say one thing. Yeah, I noticed a couple of comments that he made, or someone was just talking about transfers in general, and he had basically said like, look, you don't understand, you don't necessarily know what the player's situation is or whatever. And I mean, I kind of wish sometimes players were a little bit more open on Twitter like that, just kind of, making, I think it's just a lot of people just don't understand how it works inside of a program. And yeah, there's going to be those dynamics that rub people the wrong way. I mean, like, let's call it what it is, right? Was it Justin Jackson? Who was it? I'm trying to remember who it was. T.Y. Savage. Who's Savage 27 on Twitter? Is that Justin Jackson on the Chargers? Defensive tackle? Justin Jones?
Possibly. Yes.
Jones, that's what it
Justin
is.
Jones.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And they had they had mentioned something about the defensive line or something like that. And, like someone credited Dave Doran for development. And he was like, nah, that was, that's Thunder. And it was just like one of those things where you're like, well, why are you even saying that from a PR perspective? But two, then you're kind of like, well, why are you saying that? What's the story? And I think a lot of people don't realize it's not always rosy between the head coach and every player, or even their position coaches. It's not always easy, I guess is what I'm saying. So
shit flows downhill, right? Yeah. And it also flows back up. So if when somebody's giving credit to Dave Dorn for developing players, he's giving credit to the program, right? So you're just being nitpicky if you're going to say, well, it's Thunder that did it. Like, no, Dorn put Thunder in place or kept them there, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And that's why it comes out like that. But people have a tendency to take those things the wrong way. But I think times are changing. I think we're going to see less of that coach speak coming out of the players because of what's happening in society right now, right? You've seen it with Florida State. Their players like, no, that whatever Norvell said was BS. And now the Mississippi State running back said, hey, I'm not going to play. This is a 1,000-yard rusher. He's like, I'm not playing if this state is going to have the Confederate flag on their flag. And the reason I bring up that guy is because NC State plays Mississippi State in week 2. So they better start getting to changing that flag if they want that kid to play.
If you had bet me that Mike Leach's player would make a dramatic statement before Mike Leach said something crazy during quarantine, right, I would have lost a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree. And it's the same thing you saw with Oklahoma State with Chuba Hubbard, right? He came out and was like, these things are not okay. He was critical of the coach, and these kids are going to band together in that regards, and they're going to have a voice. So, maybe that ends up with us getting less coach speak and player speak. Oh yeah, all the generic lines we're so used to hearing. Maybe we don't hear those anymore. Maybe that's the positive that comes out of all this. is that people actually have a voice in some of these things.
I don't know, Evan. We don't have a top 30 ACC player, so
that's right. Nobody's going to ask them. Nobody's going to put a microphone in front of the number 31 player in the ACC. That's for sure.
We joke. Yeah, no, you're right, man.
Speaking of not having top players, one of the things Will and I were texting about recently was Bill Connelly's preview. I didn't read it, but give me the lowdown.
Not good, folks. Basically, he summed up the running backs as there's talent there, but it's young, and Ricky Person's always injured. And the offensive line, obviously had a bunch of injuries last year. It's got some talent with Iquanu and a couple of guys, but again, inconsistent because of injuries. It basically was like wide receivers can catch the ball, but there's nothing special about them. Based on last year, seems true. Knocked the underperformance of Hockman and Leary, but recognized that they're both freshmen at least. And then basically was saying that the issue on defense isn't necessarily a lack of talent, but it's a lack of experience and veterans. So, kind of highlighted that you've got a lot of young linebackers. The DBs and safeties are very thin. It just basically painted if we're not healthy, it could be rough from a high level perspective. Now he usually goes much more granular when he does his 125 foot program in preview. This was just the high level shots at the Atlantic Division that day. So I didn't even look at the Coastal because obviously, UNC is going to be great.
And I have, the previews with those things. If you look at last year's box scores and look at our roster, people are going to look at it surface level and say, yeah, they're missing this and that and the other. I don't think they take into account that there's still a lot of talent on this team, more talent than we're used to seeing. There's a lot of talent at the running back position. Knight and Houston alone are good. And then if Ricky Person is healthy, which having not played football for a year should be pretty healthy, right? I mean, these things there's a lot of talent in these positions. It wasn't necessarily the running backs that were there or that were disappointing last year. It's the offensive line was young and beat up, and now you're bringing these guys back. And I think if you put all the pieces together, there's a little bit more case for optimism than all of these previews looking at pieces of, hey, they don't have this, they don't have that. Like, sure, you don't have, 5 All-American offensive linemen, but you have some good guys that have played a lot of football that can hold their own. And I'd get a little bit more experience under their belt, and I think that makes a difference. And that applies to a lot of positions. The wide receivers didn't look great. Well, the quarterbacks didn't look great either. So maybe the quarterback improves, and all of that lifts up everything else, right?
So 5 days ago, he did a little Twitter thread on NC State, and basically he was like, as it turns out, when you cycle through 3 young quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and 9 offensive linemen, your offense is probably going to stink. The running backs were pretty efficient, all things considered, but the pack desperately needs a quarterback to step up. The offense was Tate's worst since 1971. The D, its worst since 2009. Pretty good pass rush, and run D was horrid, but injuries at cornerback meant super soft coverage. Linebacker core should be great, but there's turnover at DL and DB.
So there you go. Backpedals a little bit and kind of fixes what is missing from that. And I think that's a little bit more accurate. There's pieces there that can make a serviceable defense. There's pieces there that are going to make a serviceable offense. Now, it doesn't mean – it still means Leary's got to be better. Leary's got to be good. And it still means the secondary's got to stay healthy. But there's enough pieces there that I'm not super concerned with them just being a total dumpster like they were last year.
Yeah, I think what I want to see is good decision-making out of the quarterback. We can't have as many interceptions, or at least early, first quarter, second quarter turnovers. And on the flip, we've got to see better tackling, and we've got to see, more turnovers on defense. And part of that is we played so many young guys last year that were constantly in bad position and couldn't take advantage of it. But I mean, I just want to see consistency from the quarterbacks and eliminate erratic bad decisions. And I'm hoping that they're able to do that. It's just, I'm just really parking my expectations low because they only got 5 practices, and I just don't really know how much you can truly accomplish on Zoom. Or, I don't know if Darren and those guys were, finding local players to go at least throw the ball with and, work on concepts with. I don't know, but I will say this again. I feel like all the Zoom conferences and the things, the snapshots we got into the program during the quarantine made me think like this program is well run. Everyone's saying and doing the right things. They look and sound like they're being accountable, and that's the one edge I think we can get over similar programs, I guess, on our slate.
Yeah.
Right. Is that I have more trust in our guys to do the right thing. I think in the past, the issue was we didn't have all the horses. And I agree with you. I think we've got horses now. They're just young.
Yeah. The Taj Boyd came out with an analysis on Devin Leary, and I thought it was pretty good. But his main takeaway was, hey, the guy competes at a high level all the time, right? They're getting blown out, and he's still grinding. He's still playing hard. And he's got the talent, right? He was so impressed with some of the throws he can make and just the ability he has that the more experience, things should get better. Now, again, how have they been practicing, right? That's a big question mark. I'm just going to think experience and time are going to be your friend here, right? Things kind of settle down. You've been in the program. You understand how things go. And maybe a new quarterbacks coach can, talk some other sense into you. So I don't know.
Or just be I know it's not 100% Tim Beck's offense because, I read a Doran interview and he was like, well, Tim's going to do some stuff he's never done before, and we're going to do stuff we've never done before. So,
yeah.
Oh God, I hope they just let him fucking do his job and, only take the pieces that make sense, I guess, to keep. I don't want to see a hodgepodge thing. I want to see a cohesive vision with Beck. That's all.
Yeah. I didn't I know what statement you're referring to. I heard that too. And I don't necessarily like that from Doran. I think I was hoping he would have learned a little bit more than to try to have a quote NC State offense, but we'll see what happens there.
I mean, if it's Beck saying, hey, I've been watching the film and I like this and I see how I can incorporate it, that's one thing. I don't want it to be like, hey, you got to make a JSAM player. That it's not like we tried to do that when we didn't have the guys. And sometimes you just got to recognize you had a once in a generation talent in Jalen Samuel. So you can't keep trying to recreate it. I know he made things work, but come on. Anyways.
Yeah, let's talk a little basketball. We'll come back to football. We got some questions we can answer. Kevin Keese recently did a podcast. I listened to it, and I actually pulled a couple of clips from it. So I'm going to play this one. It's 2 minutes long. I'm going to play this for you.
And moving on to kind of what you got going here at North Carolina State, you lose your top 2 scorers off of last year's team, but you return 4 guys who started at least 15 games last year. What were you be expecting? What type of step forward will we be expecting from Jericho, Manny, Devin, DJ coming into this season?
I like my bunch. I've got a great recruiting class and 5 freshmen who are going to be good, 4 of them who are from the state of North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And then, so what I've told everybody is we've got a mixture of, freshmen and upperclassmen and some guys who are veterans. And so when you think about Manny, think about what he did as a freshman, led the ACC in shot blocks and one of the best shot blockers in the country. Mm-hmm. I think he'll even get better. Once he gets better offensively, you know what you're getting from him defensively. Jericho had some really, really good games for us. He started a lot for us. He can make shots. He's a kind of one of those hybrid forwards. Up until he had that nasty fall at Wake Forest where he had the concussion, you could make an argument he was playing the best basketball. And then when you look at Devin Daniels and how he finished the year and how great he played and his confidence grew, and he started being one of the most coachable guys on the team. He'll be one of the better guards, in my opinion, that's returning in the ACC. DJ Funderburg, though he didn't have a great year as far as shooting the basketball from the outside, and his assist to turnover wasn't great. One of the best offensive rebounders in our league. He also is a guy who's capable of being a double-double guy. And so you can just go down the line, and who wants to leave out Braxton Beverly, who is one of my favorite guys, can really shoot the basketball. Didn't shoot it as well this year because I think he was a little bit tired and his back was bothering him. But, he's a guy who started, as a freshman when we went to the NCAA tournament. You had transfers like Thomas Allen and Darion Sebron, who nobody knows, who was sitting out last year. Then I like the team that we're returning, and I like our opportunities this year.
And then I was going to add, Darion and Thomas were going to be the next up in the questioning. Is how are they fit into what you already have with their length and versatility and play creation ability?
Well, Darion is 6'7", and what I like about him is he can play several positions on the floor. If you want to go small, he can be a four-man. If you want to play a big point guard, he can play that. His versatility is what we don't have. He's super athletic. He's a guy that, as his shots continue to get better, he could be a really good ACC player. And then Thomas brings experience. When you think of Thomas, you think of Braxton Beverly, a guy that can make shots, a guy who's capable of playing the 1 or 2. He is a better defender than he's given credit for. Thomas, I didn't say that, so if you hear this, don't listen to that. But he has a chance to be really good, but he's also a guy who can be a veteran in the locker room.
Mm-hmm. And
I think Keats covered it right there, man. I think that was a pretty candid response on, hey, what is your team bringing back? I thought that was interesting. That's from the Absolute Basketball Podcast with Jamie Shaw.
ACC champs. I feel it.
I mean, I like what he said about Funderburg. He's like, yeah, he can be a good player, right? He didn't shoot it great, but he's got it. He's got it.
Subtle motivational shade there.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of it, man. I really thought that was a really good just breakdown of all the guys and what to expect. I think to me the most intriguing is Sebron. Yeah. If you have a 6'7" guy that can handle the ball and play around, I mean that's not something a lot of teams have. I think that's interesting there.
Yeah, it's it would have always been interesting to see what it would have looked like with Josh Hall in there too. But I think guys are all real.
I didn't pull it. I didn't clip it. Sorry, that there was. He said something about Josh Hall. So he asked about that question. He was asked about Josh Hall in that podcast, and he essentially says, "Hey, we're pulling for him. Yeah. Like we talked to him the whole time. We were clear through the process, and there was nothing fundamentally wrong with how Keats handled that." And he broke that down and basically said the exact same thing: is this is a good decision for Josh Hall. He can go make money. Let him go make money. We would love to have him here, but that's the best decision for him. Good for him. And I thought that was a really good response.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, you say that too, it encourages people in the future to know that, he's not going to burn you if you make that choice. And, I mean, if they're smart, they're going to always attach themselves to LeCue and Hall, and who cares if they never played there, right? It just says, look at the eye I have. You know what? I'm so good. I can just my talent of evaluating you gets you a leg up to go to the NBA. I mean, they can spin it however they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We have some more basketball stuff, but we'll come back to it. Women's basketball ace got a professional contract for a team in Switzerland. I was kind of surprised that she didn't get a shot in the WNBA. I guess she's not the biggest or the fastest, but she's a ball player, man. We've seen how some of those, guys and girls who just have that it factor can succeed. I thought somebody would give her a chance.
Yeah, it was surprising, but I get it. I'm glad that, more than it's always important for these folks to like have an opportunity, and I'm really excited that she gets to continue playing, and maybe she will turn some heads and fight her way back into the WNBA. I'm curious. I think the WNBA is probably, women's sports in general maybe have been hurt pretty hard with COVID. It would be, just advantageous, not just for all sports to get back, but I feel like, their momentum from at least some of the folks I follow on Twitter seems like they were worried that it kind of like, hey, this is going to set back the sport a little bit the longer this goes on. And, it's obviously not funded the same way as the NBA. So, they got to be able to dig through this time. But yeah, I was just jealous because we were supposed to be going to Switzerland for a conference / vacation in a few months, and that was canceled, obviously. So I'm glad that at least one Wolfpacker can get out there this year.
In other basketball news, they hired a new assistant, Mike Summey. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of you guys don't know that name or wouldn't know that name, but I know that name well. Mike is very good friends with one of my very good friends, and I've known him since his time at NC State, since he was a manager, video guy. And I was amped when I heard he was getting the job, and because this guy loves NC State, like he loves it, and he's an NC kid. He grew up a State fan, and he's worked there. He's worked his way up. He's learned under a lot of good coaches, and when you talk to him, and he's always been this way, right? You hear his interviews that he's done on some podcasts, but he's always been this way. That when you get him going, man, he gets going, and it just keeps coming, and you can tell he's super passionate about basketball, but he's super passionate about being here. And I don't know necessarily how that connection got made. I hadn't heard that story yet, but I think it's awesome. I think it's a really, really good person, a really good basketball guy to be on that staff, right? I think one of the criticisms Keats has always had is that he's looked for his assistants or his high school guys that he's worked with and hasn't had that tactician, right? Or that Bobby Lutz, right? Everybody gave Bobby Lutz a lot of credit under Gottfried. Summey's got that basketball brain, man. And I was amped to see him get hired. So I think it was an awesome hire personally, but also awesome hire for Keats.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say
y'all like him.
Yeah, the IPS podcast between James and Summey was really good. The thing that I really liked hearing is he thinks he's really good at teaching guys to be better at shooting, which is something that I think we all would love to see some more consistency. And a lot of his thing is make sure they're catching it in the same spot every time, doing the fundamentals. He seems, at least the way he was talking, he seems like one of those guys that's able to have that conversation with a player who says, I shoot the same way every time, and him be like, no, you don't, and break it down, teach them how to be more consistent. Because I think that's just one of the things that has held State back. I mean, when he was saying that in the podcast, I was like, oh my God, what I would have done to have him here for Markel last year. It just sounds like a good hire. So that podcast is on iTunes or wherever you get your local podcast. So I would go listen and hear the guy. He's got a good story. Just seems good. Yeah,
I used to work the Herb Sennett basketball camps, and Summey was there working them as well. And I told the story before, I think, on the podcast, but one summer Archie Miller's in there, and he's in there shooting on the gun. This big funnel thing there. It catches all the balls that you shoot and shoots them back, and it keeps count of how many you've made. We watched Archie put up 403 balls. You want to know how many he made? Take a guess. Take a guess how many he made out of 400.
He's just by himself, right?
By himself, okay. Yeah. There's no obviously taller guy in front of him.
I don't know, like 320?
384.
Oh,
I'll never forget that. 400 balls. He made 384, and we're sitting there watching him do this. I'm like, holy cow.
It's too bad he's a terrible coach.
Yeah, right.
I'm kidding, Archie. I'm kidding.
But yeah, like, so Summey's he's been around for a long time, and he's seen some really good shooters, some really good players, and he's learned under a lot. I mean, that staff with Sendek had a lot of good coaches. Sean Miller was on that staff as well, and
oh my gosh,
yeah, good hire. Speaking of Sean Miller, the NCAA is dropping the hammer on some people. Not Arizona this time. Oklahoma State gets banned from next year's tournament. Does anybody care about Oklahoma State basketball?
Apparently, their number one player was like, "I'll stick around."
Isn't that crazy? That's so crazy.
I can't believe you glanced over my Idaho. No, you didn't. Idaho just got a COI, or actually, no, they just got their penalties. They're on probation. A coach has show cause. They can't have the basketball operations manager. Like, that person can't be on staff for over a year. And it was all for some horse. I've made it this far without cursing. I'll keep pushing through for some horse crap stuff as far as NCAA is concerned. So, if I was in any school, I would just look at this and be like, why would I ever deal with the COI with the committee? Fleming State doesn't get sent to the dark ages by this independent commission. Why would anyone cooperate with the NCAA? I don't get it. They're making it so they won't.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I think what's really weird is that the Oklahoma State, the top, I think he was top player or top recruit, right, decided that he was going to still go to Oklahoma State. Now, they hired his brother on the staff, so that had probably something to do with it.
Oh.
But these kids don't care that you don't play in the tournament anymore, right? It's not – they can go pretty much anywhere and still end up getting paid, right? If you're good, you're good. Like the Anthony Edwards kid from Georgia. Like, Georgia hasn't been in the tournament in God knows how long.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He's still going to – he goes there, still going to make the league, still going to be one of the top picks.
I'm telling you,
I think college basketball is in a really weird place.
That's the Chuba effect, man. He just wants to stay there and see Chuba. Yeah. That's what it is.
Kid can play too.
No shit. Yeah. Oh man, there I missed it. I let my expletive go. Sorry.
You ruined it. All of the ACC coaches turned into women on Twitter. I saw that, but I didn't engage on it. I don't.
It was so disturbing
really
that I just. Yeah. There were a couple I was just like, oh my god. Oh. It's too close for comfort. Yeah.
I saw the Nick Saban one. I was like, nah, don't care about this. Yeah, no, close Twitter again.
Keats was so disappointing that I was really hoping for a little Vivica A. Fox action. I really thought they were going to glam him up. So I'm sure Keats probably is going to have a word with somebody about that.
Yeah. There's a big wrestling commit. Yeah, I don't know enough to speak on that. I saw that. Really good wrestler committed. No surprise, that program's cruising right now. So. Good stuff there.
That program is just proof, though, that you can be great here. You just need to get the right person, and you got to support them the correct way. And that's all.
Well, I mean, same with swimming, right? Yeah. I keep pointing to swimming. Braden Holloway is just he's probably my favorite coach because his line is like, just water's wet. I just need a pool, man. Like, and he can recruit to that, and he did, and he's built a powerhouse for swimming program. Like. I love it. I love that mentality, and I think that's it's proof alone that you can do it here. Got a bunch of questions. Pack recruiting, Mike Summey hire. Yeah, we talked about that. There's the basketball season. Who do you think will be in the starting lineup? Quickly, I'd say
Coach
Manny, Funderburk, Daniels. Coach basically just went through the five.
I think Helms will be a starter.
Hello.
What do you think? Do you think they'll break up Manny and DJ just to keep their minutes spaced? Maybe.
It depends if he goes with the four guard lineup. He might spread them out. Braxton and then Thomas Allen probably rotating, and then Sebron in there. It's going to be a lot of guys getting PT this year.
Yeah, I think the more interesting question is, start of the season, is Devin Daniels the point guard, and I guess that's what I'm kind of curious
Yeah.
about, because he reminds me. I can't remember the kid's name from Georgia Tech last year, but the guy that just played played 100% the whole time. And
Alvaro, right?
Yeah.
Alvaro.
I think that's who it was, right?
Yeah.
I really think if you don't have like an elite point guard, you just need someone who tries. And that's the one thing, Devin Daniels always will do. And I really like that comment from Keats about him being the most coachable, and him coming back too from the draft experience. I hope, was a positive experience for him too. So
Yeah. Wolfpack Rob asks, will Gibson, Jay Gibson, get a lot of playing time this season? How does he compare to Josh Hall? I don't expect him to play that much.
Yeah.
He's a 6'10". For lack of better comparison, and I know this is going to come off weird, but Kevin Garnett was an elite talent, but he's a tall guy that can play all 5 positions. I think that's what you get with Gibson, albeit he's a little bit raw. So the better comparison is probably Marcus Melvin, right? Marcus Melvin was a tall guy, could handle the ball. He could stroke it from deep. I think that's what you'll see. I don't think he'll be needed that much this year. But in that Jamie Shaw podcast, there was another clip that he talks about the new guys. So I'm going to play that here.
And then with those 4 freshmen from the state of North Carolina, Cam Hayes, Shaquille Moore, Jalen Gibson, Nick Farrar, what can you tell us a little bit about how you're expecting them to come in and kind of affect the program?
I love all of those guys because, and honestly, I think they all bring something different to the table. When you look at Shaquille, and, he's a guy that's electric and can play the 1 or the 2. Him and Cam Hayes, as played together at AAU, and Cam's exceptional. Did a good job playing over at Greensboro Day. He's a guy who, we'll look at as playing majority point, but you can also move him over. Super athletic. Shaquille, as athletic as he can be. Those 2 guys could be a heck of a backcourt at some point during their career here. And then, when you think about Nick, it's probably one of the most underrated guys in the country. I think during the John Wall, people saw how good he could be. When you score 93 points in 3 days, I think people learn about you. But he's a tough matchup guy because, he's 6'6", can kind of play some 4 and 3 and has a chance to be really good. And then late, we're excited to pick up Jalen. Jalen Gibson's got a chance. He's long, he's athletic, he has perimeter skills, he can really shoot it. Once he adds a little bit more weight, he's got a chance to be really good in this program. So those 5 guys, those 4 guys, and then I don't want to leave EB out because he's not from North Carolina.
Yep.
Because we love him. We think he's an underrated guy who also can play some 4 and 5 for us, block shots, and as his offense develops, he could be really good. So when you add those 5 guys, I like the team that we have. Of course, we signed Josh Hall, who is going to be a tremendous player. We wish him nothing but best and good luck in the draft, and I certainly hope he gets that opportunity to show people how good he could be one day.
Again, I think Keats broke it down pretty well there. I think that's exactly what you expect to see. I forgot he had such high praise for Nick Farrar. So it'll be interesting to see what these guys, what they're asked to do and what they can contribute. What I like what Keats is doing right now, and it's been a valid criticism before, is that his rosters were questionable. Mm-hmm. Like, he's bringing in guys now that don't have to play, and so now in theory you can redshirt these guys, right? I mean, Sebron got to redshirt whether it was his choice or not, but these guys coming in, Farrar might not have to play, Gibson might not have to play, and then you're building depth farther down the line. You're building, more stability in the future, and I really, really like that. I think that's a big win.
It's also just good to have bodies, and not having to rely on. Boy, I'm gonna who was the white guy with the ponytail? That's how much I remember of this kid.
I mean, now that you asked me, Walker.
Wyatt Walker, right? Yeah. I mean, no offense to those guys, but these guys just look like they're oozing more talent, and I don't know what to expect. But I mean, basketball is the sport I think you can contribute the quickest, as a freshman. So, it's just good to have those guys. And I don't know, man, every time I hear Keats talk, I just get more excited about basketball. It's, this is what it must feel like to be a UNC fan.
I can't wait for Keats to have 4 guards that can run and shoot.
Oh my God.
Right. But that's what he wants to do. Right? He wants to run a 4-on-1.
I just closed my eyes.
I cannot wait to do it.
And just dreamt of it. That's desperate for sports, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Mahesh, glad to have you guys back. Glad to have you back, Mahesh. You never updated us on how all your interviews went. I hope they went well.
Yeah. Tell us.
Compared to where we were recruiting-wise, I think this is football-related. Yeah. From the last podcast, what do you guys think of the momentum we've gained these last few weeks? We kind of talked about that already. Positive momentum. Still some gaps to fill. I think there's been I think we're going to have James from IPS on, or maybe he'll jump on over there. But we'll talk a little bit more about recruiting. But I think one of the things that I would be cautious about, or I'm particular about, is running back recruiting. We talked about defensive line recruiting. Where are they going to go with some of these positions? I think there's a long way for that to settle out, but the after effects of not landing Shipley and putting all your eggs into that, you lose out on Pryor, which, he wasn't ever coming here, but also Travion Cooley down the road, who committed to Louisville. And really, you don't really have a running back on your board, nearby that is a good prospect, right? Or I say good prospect, I mean likely to commit, or that you're in good standing with. I think that is a real concern. But I think the overall momentum has picked up a lot, and we're in a place right now where, in theory, you don't lose your running back, so it's maybe not a huge deal not to take one this class. I'm sure they will, but
yeah, I mean, Sumo has been Demi Sumo has been working on his grades. Here's the thing. I think if he didn't land Houston last year and him turn out to be a surprise, I'd be worried about running back recruiting just because of just general depth.
Yeah.
3 guys. Yeah. If Person stays healthy, we get 2 we get this year and next year with him, I think, if I remember. Sometimes I am kind of curious about this staff when they go so hardcore all in and with like a Will Shipley, and then it doesn't even seem like we were really even in it. When you really look back on it, so we'll see. I think once we start playing football, all of a sudden that board will get shook up. I mean, Demi Sumo, they like him. He seems like he's capable of kind of maybe more valued because of his ability to catch out of the backfield. So I don't see anything wrong with that.
Right.
I was going to say, I was thinking of a position other than running back that I was concerned with. Tight end.
Yeah, tight end.
A guy we were just
I've seen people say that
at UCF. So
yeah,
note made.
Yeah, tight end is one of those positions that you could probably feel a lot of guys can flip into a tight end, or basically the way we use them is to block. So I think I'm not super concerned about it.
How many yards Carrie Angeline this year? I think we did this early in the year. I feel like we're in a better mood today.
Over under 700. What do you say?
Shoot. I'm gonna go under on the 700, but he's gonna get a lot of touchdowns in the goal line, is my guess.
Over under 8 touchdowns.
I was gonna say 8. I guess I got to go over to protect my brand here. 9 touchdowns.
Yeah. I think he's gonna go over 700 yards. Touchdowns are hit or miss because they can go to anywhere. But
why would you not throw?
He's gonna get the yards.
We
said that last year too, so I don't know.
As long as Ottenreith is healthy, there is no reason that Carrie Angeline should even be blocking anybody. Just spread him out and let him go.
All right. Other question: do you think Eric McDaniels, running back out of Hopewell, Virginia? I honestly have no idea who that is. I looked it up before the podcast. I'll ask James Henderson about that one next week or next time. I think that'll be a much.
I can call my power plant
give you much
out
better.
there and ask them.
Right. Also, defensive line recruiting seems weak. Are we looking to get a true nose guard, 2-gap player? What are our defensive end good fits given they are switching to a 3-man front? Would they convert defensive end or a player like Jabril McNeil to a buck position like Peyton Wilson? Lack of recruiting in 20 and 21 on the D-line is concerning. Yeah, so defensive line recruiting is you got Travali Price, which I think to me is one of the best players on the board. I think he's really good. And just by not even my own eyes, just what everybody else says about him, I think that was a really, really big pickup. I think if you have a guy like Jabril McNeil, he probably grows into a defensive end, 3-3-5 defensive end. I think it's always hard to project those things, but I think given the bloodlines, I'm going to assume that he wouldn't stay at linebacker. I think he's super important, but I have no idea where he stands recruiting wise.
Yeah, there's also a big player coming out of Huff, I think. Is it Huff or Hugh? I always assume it's Huff.
Hugh.
Man.
I don't know. Huff?
You tell us, readers. But there's someone that's connected, I think, to Mario and Sean that was liking some stuff on Twitter recently that gives me an indication that maybe we're in really good standing with him. But he's a 22 prospect, I guess, is what it would be. But he's going to be a big-time player, so keep your eyes on that. Yeah, I mean, Jabril McNeil, I mean, if you're looking for nose guards, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I just don't know. I don't. And, Marquise Brunson has been talked about, I guess. I guess what I would say is just it's so weird not having camps, right now. Because, the way the cycle typically works is, your no-brainer guys that you've been, like, really hard, going after hard, you'll get them early in spring. And then State always focuses on pulling dudes out of camp. They really want to see guys in camp. And that's just gone. That tool for them is gone, and it's going to put a lot of pressure, I guess, in the fall to once they reevaluate and shuffle the board. They're sending out, like, it seems like they're offering a defensive back every 30 minutes, but I don't really follow or see any movement on a defensive tackle. So I don't know. Maybe they feel comfortable there. I don't know.
So this plays into what Cam's question as well is basically, are they landing their main targets? And I think more or less they are at this point. And I don't think they're in a hurry to just fill in, right? We obviously know they want to take another defensive lineman, probably a nose. And I think they're going to be patient about it because I think that's probably the smart move too, because with all the uncertainty, we already talked about all the decommitments that everybody is projecting. I think there's going to be a lot of movement, man. And I think it will be smart to have those positions open.
Yes.
And not just take somebody just to take someone. Because say somebody flips from Tennessee and like, hey, I really, I want to stay home. I want to go to Chapel Hill. Hey, sorry, dude, we don't have any spots unless they kick somebody, right? And that's a bad look, man. Coaches don't like that when you start booting or high school coaches don't like that when you start booting their players. And I think the smart approach is to take it easy, not force somebody in unless, he's high on your board right away and he's going to stick.
Yeah. I mean, I think from their perspective, the next key recruit is Jordan Poole. And then, kind of after that, they really want London Cooper, who's on the offensive line, and like Jabril McNeil. But I mean, it really is just kind of open, it seems. And I think you made a really good point there. There are going to be so many decommitments, and there's going to October is just going to be wild, is what I expect, and December too, right? And here's the thing, right? Everything changes if State has a good season. If they exceed expectations, or if they come out the gate hot, you'll see guys, coming on board more so than normal. But I'm just looking at some of the recruiting boards, and I mean, Marquise Brunson is the only defensive tackle I see, for example. So
Yeah.
Hopefully this Jaden Tate kid's good. I know he's a bit undersized, but they obviously liked him. And, I think
He skips leg day. I'm gonna tell you that much.
he skips
if
leg
you look at
day?
his pictures,
Oh, yeah.
he skips leg day. Look at his pictures, man. He is top heavy. Apparently, there's some video of him squatting like 600 pounds or something.
Yeah.
But man, his legs look super small compared to the rest of him.
Yeah.
Really
he seems like he is a little bit of a package deal with Travali, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care. Louisville, South Carolina.
Price is that good.
Yeah, I mean,
Price is that good. You take that.
Yeah, you just got to take a risk. And the thing is, like, he can long snap. He can do a lot of stuff, and that's why I'm not really super worried. I know a lot of people freak out. I mean, now I don't think he's Nikita Whitlock, who was basically the same size coming into Wake, but that's probably the one position I'm not too scared about. Anyways, what's our next question?
I think we answered all of Quentin's questions. He rattled off a bunch of them: QB battle, football, 21 recruiting class, baseball draft picks. That's a good one. Patrick Bailey. We had a bunch of guys. They all went to the Giants, I think. Patrick Bailey got drafted 13th to the Giants. I was pretty high, but then the name slips me. The other kid went to the Giants as well in the second round.
I'll look it up for you.
Yeah, I was pulling something else up because the next question is, it's been a while since the IPS posted their Stay in the Program podcast about football. I mostly agreed with what was said, but the boards thought it was too negative. Have any thoughts on their podcast? Yeah, and I'm going to pull it up too because I did have some thoughts about it. And to me...
Oh, you
Yeah, about the podcast. Yeah, I'm going to pull up my my comment about it. I think they were a little bit negative. I don't know if it was necessarily it just might have come off wrong because they're inexperienced podcasters, and I think it's hard. People don't understand how hard it is to like get going and like feel like you can free flow on the mic. Now, I'm not saying that we're experts by any means, but at this point, if you listen now to when I started this with Dustin, like we were like, guys, how you doing? Like super nervous, super like just apprehensive about it. And I think some of that came off in their podcast. I think they might have been a little bit negative, but
I thought they were just being honest and what's the word I want to say? Not frank about it, but I did not disagree with anything they were saying, and I knew a lot of people want a positive off-season kind of podcast, but I think they were just trying to be genuine, kind of in what their concerns were. And we just had a super negative podcast a month or 2 months ago, whatever, so it's easy once you start snowballing, I guess is what I would say.
Yes, it's super easy that once you start going down that path of not, of being negative and kind of being dark about it, not balancing it out. And I think that's really where they left off, is that they didn't balance it out with the positives, right? There is some positives to it. It was a lot of a train wreck. We can say that, right? We can talk about that freely, but there is some positives there. And if you don't point those out, you run the risk of, just saying, hey, everything's bad. Everybody sucks. This is all for nothing. So I think that's just where they missed out.
To
me,
I
don't think it was bad.
Done.
Yeah,
kicking game got a lot. Turner, Gill, I thought it was just a fair podcast, and it's frankly, I feel like that half the time is, until I see otherwise, I shouldn't expect a huge change this year, just because there was so much change this off season, and we didn't get to get spring ball beyond 5 practices. And if you look at any interview of the coaches right now, they all say the same thing. We just don't know what we have because you're not in the room with them. and you're not sure if a concept is really getting across. So, I mean, I just didn't think they did. I thought people overreacted to them, if we're to be honest.
I mean, it's going to happen.
Sports here.
They'll get better. They'll get better about, being able to have that conversation. I don't think it was necessarily. I just don't think they highlighted enough of the good things that they talked about.
Evan's just trying to juice. Yeah, you're just trying to juice download numbers for your first episodes from earlier.
Go back and do not go back and listen to all of Dustin talking about Matt Canada.
Oh my God! Maybe we should earth off some gems from the Canada era.
There was a lot. I really wish I had the time and desire to go back and pull some of those clips. There's a lot of Huxtable hate for 7-8 years.
Well, that's the thing. Who does everyone hate now, right? You don't have Huxtable anymore. So who do you think? Okay, who's the coach that everyone hates this year?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Do you think
Roper probably?
Yeah, if the running backs fumble one time, it's kind of Roper's fault.
Yeah. We don't recruit any running backs, and then somebody fumbles. Roper's going to be enemy number one.
The person, because of their depth, it's safety. Like those guys, the DBs, they're going to probably get the worst of it, right? Because you're not turning your head, blah blah blah.
Yeah. Here's what I said. Maybe realistic, but unnecessarily heavy. Having done this podcast for 5 years is hard. Covering NC State is hard. It's okay to point out negatives, but balancing those with context is important. Something we're always working on while trying to maintain honesty. I mean, it's basically what I said. Like they didn't balance that out very much. I thought they were a little heavy. I think the floor for this program, which was I think the big conversation on that podcast, was the floor should be 7-8 wins. Yeah. Like the ceiling is win the Atlantic. If you can't do that, then why even try? Right. And I think this 7-8 wins is realistic given the schedule, given the resources, given the talent. I think that should be the floor. That's my view of the program. So
your best comment was ripping them a new one for their audio quality and internet connection.
I mean, seriously.
Which coming
guys,
from
if you're going to record, yeah. All right, mine's fun. It's just I hit that record sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're doing a podcast, the most important thing is audio quality. People put on headphones and listen to it really closely. And if you're like recording over Skype or you're recording like freaking Pack Pride podcast, they used to put it on speakerphone and record it that way into a mic. I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
There's so many tools out there that allow you to record locally so you don't have to record over Skype. Then, that I think that there's no excuse for it. I mean, Anchor is free and they let you do it now. So anyway.
Yeah. Get a good mic. And if you got a bad internet connection, go somewhere else and find free Wi-Fi that works better. I think that's the only thing that drives me nuts on a podcast. It's just when people start clipping out, and it's okay if it happens one or two times, but when it's consistent, it's just like you're going to have to redo the whole pod.
Yeah. There's no reason like our audio won't clip out because both of our sessions record locally. So while it might be dropping out for Will and I, the audio records on our computers and then they uploads and puts them together. Right. So there's no chance of it ever going bad. We can record over a tin can. It just, that's how it works. That's how you should record a podcast. There's plenty of tools that let you do that. Alec asks, are we going to win a national championship this year or not? Yes, absolutely. In something.
Yeah. He didn't have to qualify it, right?
Yeah. It could be football. If we're the last team standing without COVID and nobody else can play, I mean, by de facto, we are the national champions.
What's going to happen? We're gonna beat Louisville, and then they're gonna cancel the season, and we're gonna have the only ACC win. And you damn know it. We are putting up that banner.
Absolutely, like Florida State did, right?
Oh, heck yes. We would be fools to not jump at it and get the free marketing out of it.
Yeah.
The best program in North Carolina.
Undefeated in 2020.
And then like ECU somehow beats Marshall and they're like, we won a game too, guys.
Come look at us. Last question. Do you put ranch on pizza, Mahesh? Like, put what you want on pizza, man. I'm not one of the pizza snobs. Some people like all sorts of things on it.
Yeah.
I occasionally like to dip my pizza in ranch. My son, my 5-year-old, he loves dipping his pizza in ranch. I'm not going to hate on it. Ranch is good, man. You can put whatever you want on a pizza. Pizza purists, I don't like that.
Yeah,
I'm not about that.
One of my favorite pizzas is a buffalo chicken pizza in my local neighborhood pizza joint, and with chicken hot sauce, ranch, and mozzarella. So yeah, you can put ranch on it. We really like putting red pepper flakes on pizza. It really just adds a nice kick to it. Man, 100%. Please, it's just pizza, dudes. I mean, as long as you get good pizza, I don't care what you put on it. If you got to eat something from like Domino's, we gotta have a questions. But that's broader topic.
Yeah, we've made a lot of pizza during this pandemic. My wife's got really into making the dough, so at any given point, we have 8 dough balls in the fridge ready to go, and it's awesome. Like we've made some really good pizzas, man.
Well, I used to work at
My current favorite. You was Gumby's, yeah.
Oh man, I was a pizza delivery guy and pizza maker there, and I feel like I've seen enough dough balls in my lifetime, but there is something satisfying about seeing just a nice, perfectly risen ball of dough and then turning it into pokey sticks and killing somebody probably. So, that's
it's delicious. We made a lot of pizza. If anybody has some pizza making questions, let me know. I can put you on some stuff. And folks, that is it. An hour and 20 minutes, so pretty normal for us. We'll record again at some point in the future, right? If you made it this far and you like your pizza questions, somebody let me know you're still listening. Other than that, I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's staying safe, not being stupid.
Yeah,
all the good stuff.
Just wear your masks, folks. That's all I ask. I think I don't even want to get into it. We survived this podcast without going too deep into it. So thank you for all the questions, guys. I'm glad everyone was actually really excited, and it definitely got us motivated every time we would even joke about doing a podcast and people would ask. So
yeah, I enjoy these things. We'll get with James. We'll record one here or there at some point. And then we'll come back as we get some more news, as things start coming in. I think should be plenty to talk about as far as recruiting, and then are they actually going to play football? Those sorts of things. So, yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. As always, go Pack.
Go Pack.
And then with those 4 freshmen from the state of North Carolina.
My soundboard's all messed up.
I want to dance by water beneath the Mexican sky. Drink some margaritas by swinging blue lights.
Tell me about those